So we've been in this boatyard on the hard for 2 months now, which is a lot longer than we were planning on being here. We were just about ready to get the mast back up last week when we discovered that the mast step had rotting wood on the inside of it. So we started to tear all of that out and clean it up in preparation for the new mast step, which this week Pacific Seacraft is beginning to build for us. So we've got to measure that thing, modify it, and install it, as well as do a whole lot of other things to prepare for putting the mast back on the boat. Back to getting real dusty. So we've got a lot of work to do and not a whole lot of time to do it in.
I'm Desiree, and this is my husband, Jordan. We're sailing around the world, or at least trying to. We made it as far as Panama on our first boat, Atticus 1, which was a really small fixer-upper. Now we're on our dream sailboat, Atticus 2, but she needs some work before she's ready to cross oceans. So we're working hard to finish up the last of our boat projects so we can sail south to the Caribbean.
All right, so we've got the shell of the new mast step. So this is the way that Pacific Seacraft makes these now. They've got a mold, so they were able to lay this up relatively quickly for how awesome it is. And Norm is here from Pacific Seacraft, so he's going to kind of help me double check that this is fitting and that it doesn't need any modifications.
Oh yeah, that's pretty good, dude. Like a glove?
Like a large leather work glove. I'm just extremely glad that Pacific Seacraft is here. You're glad too, huh, buddy?
Yeah, he's like, yeah, I love Pacific Seacraft.
Yeah, that's good. I know it. Norm has got the measurements for the new mast step, so he's gonna take that back to Pacific Seacraft and they're gonna start modifying the shape and fabricating that final piece. In the meantime, I'm gonna start installing our new mast tangs. Basically, we mentioned that we are replacing the standing rigging, so all the wires that hold the mast in place. You also know that we're replacing the chain plates. Tangs are basically the chain plates that are on the mast, so it's what the wires connect to at the mast. Might seem a little bit excessive, but I remember a long time ago, before we got Atticus 1, I read a Cruising World article about a guy that replaced all of his standing rigging, all of his chain plates, didn't replace the tangs, and on their Pacific crossing, they actually had a mast failure because a tang broke. I'm gonna coat the bolts and the compression sleeve and everything in Lanacoat. It's made out of some kind of sheep product. It smells super gross. It basically just protects the metal, it protects the threads, it keeps everything so that we'll be able to dismantle it easily in the future if we have to, and it keeps everything from corroding. So I'm gonna go ahead and coat everything with this lovely sheep's fat stuff. All right, so the next step is I want to remove all of the old riggers tape that was covering the fasteners that secure the spreaders to the mast. The spreaders and all the metal look really good here, but the wires going to the spreader lights are problematic. The insulation on the wires has started to crack and get real brittle, and it's exposing the underlying wires. And especially over here on this side, the wires could easily have just shorted out. I may have to replace these spreader lights. Okay, so the next project is going to be installing these new cheek blocks that I've got, which are gonna be the blocks for the new lazy jacks that are gonna connect to our new Carolina cradle. And so the lazy jacks are the lines that make it so that when the sail comes down, they're kind of like fenders for the sail. They guide the sail down into that Carolina cradle. We're gonna have that Carolina cradle made locally here in a week or two, but the one thing I need to do while the mast is down is install these cheek blocks. Here I've got all of our old standing rigging that I pulled off of the mast. And then over here, I've got all of our new standing rigging. I'm going to double check that the new standing rigging is exactly the same length as the old standing rigging. Yeah, cool. We are basically dead nuts on, which is super exciting. We literally just ordered these and they came in exactly the right lengths. With our last boat, Atticus 1, you know, is an Allied C-130 from 1963, and they didn't have any information like that, and nothing was standard. So let's hope that the rest of the wires are just as perfect as these ones. Oh, well, that's not good. So basically, it looks like I messed up a little bit. The new inner forestay is a little bit too long. So basically, when I got my full length pin to pin measurement, what I did is I measured like this. But this toggle is something that we need to add to this. And so technically, I should have measured like that. So from the center of that hole to the center of that hole should have been the same. So I'm off by like that much. So we'll see, we may have to redo this. I know. It's frustrating, isn't it? It's so frustrating. Okay, so the forestay and the furler for the Genoa is the correct length. And so the only issue that we have with all of our new rigging is the inner forestay. Okay, well, I am at it again. So today I am going to be grinding out all of the paint under where the new mast step is going to go, as well as 4 inches above and around where the new mast step is going to go. So basically I'm just prepping the area for us to bond and fiberglass in the new mast step once it's done. Whew. Oh man, yeah, this is tiring. Oh my god. Raul, one of the head guys from Pacific Seacraft, is coming by in like a half hour to potentially install the step. So I'm gonna try to clean this stuff up, see if we might have a new mast step.
Hello, how are you?
Raul, have you met Desiree? I think you did briefly.
Last time when I was here.
So obviously this new mast step is a super important structural part of the boat. And so when Raul, who is the production manager at Pacific Seacraft, offered to help us install the new mast step, I jumped at the opportunity. And so to real quick explain what that mast step is constructed of, they basically filled that fiberglass shell with 2 things. First of all, they used G10 fiberglass board. And G10 is basically like a really, really dense prefabricated fiberglass board. And they laid 3 of these down vertically. So 2 on either end as bookends, and then 1 in the middle, leaving gaps in between those 3 pieces. With those gaps, they filled it with this. This is Kusa board. It's basically super, super high density polyurethane foam, but it's got fiberglass reinforcement in it. So you can see a bunch of fibers here. Now I should mention that although Pacific Seacraft 24 years ago built a couple of mast steps that weren't exactly ideal, nowadays this is the standard way that they construct mast steps. And so this is a good example of something that company has learned along the way what not to do and how to use newer modern materials to make boats even stronger and better than ever. And that's what Pacific Seacraft does nowadays with so many different aspects of their boats. So the first thing the guys did was mix up some thickened resin.
You'd probably be a good baker too, huh? You don't want to play with that, Oso.
And they applied that to the surfaces of the hull where the mast step was going to go to basically like glue the mast step in place. Next, they actually saturated the fiberglass cloth outside and off the boat because that can be kind of a messy process. And basically the way fiberglass works is the resin is sort of like glue, so it makes the fibers stick to the new surface, but then that same resin also cures and gets really hard. Look at that. Thanks a lot, guys. That was great. Yeah. You guys were very fast.
I know.
Yeah, I'm amazed at how like concerned I was when I felt the rotten wood. I mean, that was like
A week ago.
That was exactly a week ago, I think. So it's amazing that the new one's already in. I love being right next to you guys. All right, so we let the resin cure overnight, and so now I'm going to pull the peel ply and see what we've got. So you can see the peel ply really helps it so that like the surface of the resin is really nice and smooth. What I'm gonna do is kind of clean up some of the edges and some of the rough spots on the outside where the peel ply couldn't really get to, and then we're going to slap some paint on this thing and be done with it. Man, this is my kind of painting, where it's just like, get a whole bunch of paint and just slap it on, man. I love it. All right, so that's good. So we're just gonna let that cure overnight, and then we can get the metal plates on tomorrow, and man, we might be able to step this mast soon. What's going on, buddy?
I'm so excited because we got our new CL290 high field dinghy, and we're gonna take it out for a spin for the first time, and we're going to officially call it Little Shit 2.
Isn't it Little Shit 3 at this point?
We'll just pretend Little Shit 2 didn't happen.
We should call it Little Shit 0.
I like 2, Little Shit 2. Atticus
Okay.
2, Little Shit 2.
Okay.
Here we go! It's so pretty! I can't wait to get in it!
Yeah, it is a beaut, man. Look at that
Whoa.
thing. That's a 20 horsepower fuel injected Tohatsu and the high field CL290. Dude, this thing is amazing. All right, let's take it for a spin. The sun's setting. We're losing daylight. Let's go.
Hello, new convertible Hummer. All right, buddy, let her rip.
Oh, first time, baby.
Think the beer helps?
I think the fuel injection helps, and the beer. Yeah, the beer definitely helps. Oh man, 20 horsepower. This is exciting. We just wanted as much horsepower as we could get with this dinghy. It's heavier than the old one, so it needs more horsepower, but it also can stand it. This thing's our truck, you know, and our car, and our, you know, commuter vehicle. It's everything. We put groceries, tools, supplies, everything in this thing. Okay, here we go. Yeah, man, that thing just pops right up.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Feels like we're getting close to leaving, maybe.
Maybe. All right, we found a good spot.
Yeah, it's so pretty. So quiet.
Yeah, it's beautiful here. I want to have cerveza.
Okay.
I may have brought one. So this is a very monumental moment. So I brought a very monumental beer. And actually huge shout out to the patrons who brought these for me at our naming ceremony. Thank you very much, guys. Really appreciate it. Oh, yeah. It's really good, but it's a little small, so I'm a little worried I should have brought more.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. Whoa, this one's 14%.
See you tomorrow. Well, I've got a bottle of wine also from our patrons.
So Desiree's got this, like, what did you even do to this thing? Like, what did this thing do to you? That's the question.
I'm just really strong.
Oh, you're doing it. You're doing it, Peter.
You're doing it, Peter. Look.
Yes, you did it, buddy. Well, bud, here is to a week where we didn't get a lot done.
Yeah.
And yet, it was a week where, like, at the beginning of it, I was, like, in a terrible mood because we had this huge problem with the boat, and now it's more or less fixed. So we didn't get a lot done, but at least we avoided, like, what felt like a catastrophe. So,
You did a great job, buddy.
well, Pacific Seacraft did a great job.
They did a great job. I'm so glad they're right down the road.
I was just like, okay, yeah, put that
Steve.
class right there. Yeah, this refit is definitely taking longer than we thought, but to be perfectly honest, like, I love it here, man. So, cheers.
Cheers. Can I have the rest of your beer?
No.
There's enough for both of us in that.
There, no way.
Definitely. And
I'm gonna need another one of these.
and
actually.
a friend. I dare to chug it.